Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast, a music discussion podcast about all the songs of Andrew McMahon, one song per episode. Today, we're glad to bring back a returning guest to the show. Now, the last time I talked to Bailey, we talked about a Glass Passenger song, but this time, we're moving on to the next album, People and Things. So our guest is back to talk about another Jack's Mannequin song from the catalog. So Bailey, thank you for returning, and welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here again.
Tell us what you've been up to lately in terms of your photography projects and whatnot.
Right now, I'm in a couple different gallery shows at the moment. I've got pieces in a couple different gallery shows.
Cool.
One is with a women photographers group out of St. Louis. And then another is an event that's actually happening tomorrow. That's a one-day gallery pop-up that is photographers from a bunch of different continents and states who all donated work to be featured in this show that is celebrating skate culture and this church here in St. Louis called Skate Liborius. That's the name of the center that was built into this old abandoned church, and it's a skate park inside a church.
Whoa, that's awesome.
It's so cool. It burnt down tragically about maybe a year ago or so, and this show that this photography agent is putting together, he is raising money to help with the rebuilding of the church and of the skate park. So I have some photos in that, and that's going to be up tomorrow, and people donate money to be able to get a chance to get raffle tickets to win photos. And so I'm excited about that. And I started a new series of photos that I've been working on that are it's a series of bodega and shop cats. I started it while I was in New York in January. I've wanted to do it for a really long time. So kind of every year when I go to New York, the last few years, I've kind of done like a different thing to focus on in terms of photography instead of just like shooting whatever. I mean, I do a lot of shooting whatever, but I'll take like something. Last year, it was street art. I did a lot. I went and found like all different street art all over. This year, I was like, I'm finally diving into the bodega shop cats thing. So I went to all different places in New York that I had found on this app that's called, it's like Shop Cats app or something. And you can like put in cities all over the world and it tells you where there are shop cats.
I was going to ask, so how do you know where there's cats in stores? But that answers my question right there.
So they can't put ones that are in food institutions on there because the health department would then find out. But so like some of them were in like fabric stores and stuff. I did get some bodega cats though, florist cats. And then there are like 7 or 8 shop cats in St. Louis. So I'm going to hit those up in the coming months and get photos of them. And I have a couple solo gallery shows I'm working on, one of which is all behind the scenes music photos. So artists behind the scenes, backstage, recording studio, crew, load in, equipment, close-ups of road cases, stuff like that. And then one that is all poetry street art that's like painted on the street. So like when you're walking through cities and you see, poetry or words on the street that have been like spray painted on the street. I have a whole photo series that's all words that have been painted on sidewalks in all different cities all over. So.
Okay. Wow. A lot of different things, huh? I was looking at your website again recently at all the different galleries, and I know you love to take pictures of animals, and so I was looking at the there's a cat series and a dog series, Dogs of the City, I think, or is it Dogs of St. Louis, something like that?
I did a Dogs of St. Louis and a Cats of St. Louis. Yeah.
It's funny. We just had family pictures taken, and we have a puppy now, and she was like 4 months old when these pictures were taken. And it's so funny. The photographer had all these like whistles and bells and things that he was like a clown making noises to get this dog to look. I don't know how a photographer gets a pet to look, but I guess I got a little bit of insight recently into that. But he did a pretty good job of that. So
I do what I call them fur baby and me sessions, and it's people and their pets, because I don't really do portraits unless it's musician portraits for the most part. I don't generally do portraits.
Okay.
But I do these fur baby and me sessions, and I donate part of the money to animal care and rescue organizations. And so I do a lot of people and their cats, and I do people and their dogs, but I like custom design the session so that it fits the needs of the people and their pets and everything. So I can I go to people's houses for their cats and stuff. I also do photography for the cat rescue that I foster for. I take adoption profile pictures of the cats in their foster homes. And I have a lot of experience with photographing pets.
I bet. Yeah. Yeah. You get some good ones. But going back to the music photos for just a
Yes.
moment here, I saw a couple of months ago, maybe it was like a month ago, Don't Forget the Drummer. And there was like a mini series
Yes.
on your Instagram of all the drummers. And I saw Jay
Yeah.
from Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness and
Yes.
Jack's Mannequin, among several other notable drummers, of
Yeah.
course. But
Yeah.
I think people appreciate that because, yeah, you don't often get as many pictures of the drummer because they're kind of hidden
No.
away, tucked away in the back a lot of the times.
Yeah. And a lot of people, focus so much, especially like a band like, Andrew and Wilderness or Jax or Soko. Not Soko as much. I'd say more from Jax on. The photographers are so Andrew focused. Like I always notice when
Yeah.
I'm in the photo pit, you don't really see them shooting anyone but Andrew. And so a lot of times you don't see like general coverage. You don't see a lot of shots of the other band members, like bands like Andrews. A lot of people just focus on the main person, or like you'll see photos from Dashboard and three-quarters of them are all Chris and nobody else in the
Hmm.
band. So, I always try and make sure I get every member of the band because you want to represent what's happening at that show. And the drummers are always so hard because they are always tucked away. They're farther back. I'm pretty short, and when you've got tall stages, it can be really difficult to get the
Right.
drummer. But I love shooting drummers, so I had fun with that post.
Awesome. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
I love that picture of Jay. I had a couple different ones of him that I couldn't decide between, and one I had finally cut it down to that one, that black and white one that I used, and then one from, oh gosh, I think it was between Jax and Wilderness, and it was when Andrew was just going by Andrew McMahon, and Jay had blue hair, and it's like this close up of him, and you can like see some of the drums, and you can see like his sticks, but it's mostly just like him from like the chest up, and he's got these sunglasses on. You can like see the crowd in his sunglasses. So it was an outdoor show, and he's got this bright blue hair. It was a cool picture, but I ultimately was like, the other one is a better picture and more my vibe, but
Yeah.
it was funny because it's so old and he just looks so different.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that he ever had blue hair. So if
Oh
if
yeah.
I saw a drummer with blue hair on stage with Andrew, I would have thought it was somebody else completely.
It was very bright blue. It was fun to go through and pick the pictures for that post too, because I went back like pretty far in years
Hmm.
too for that. I don't think it made the cut, but it was the drummer from May almost made the cut. And that was from, oh gosh, that shot had to have been from like 2010 or something. So
Hmm.
I like dug into the archives for that post.
Wow. That's awesome. Let's talk about this song. So the song you chose today came up actually last time we talked because I remember
Yes.
we talked about caves last year. And I remember you
Mm-hmm.
telling me at the end, if you ever want to talk about this song we're going to talk about, make sure to keep you in mind. And so I always kept you in mind for this particular one. I was like, we've got to talk about that song. So,
Yeah.
but this one, I haven't honestly thought too much about over the course of time since it came out about 12 years ago. Being an album closer, it was at the end of an album with a lot of ballads. And I've kind of talked about this before on the show. The second half of People and Things loses me sometimes because I listened to a CD in that
Mm-hmm.
time frame in a car, and I'd usually start it from the beginning, and so I didn't always get to the end. And the other problem with this song is sometimes I still think, for some reason, I get confused and I'm thinking Restless Dream's the last track on this album. But then there were
Yeah.
also those bonus tracks at the
Yep.
end of, with People and Things, which were on my CD. So I
Yeah.
think this song that we're going to talk about, Casting Lines, actually would get lost among those,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. But to me, this song feels like the end of a movie, feels like the end of an era, the end of a chapter.
I agree. It's very cinematic.
That's a good word for it. Absolutely. Cinematic. So, obviously, the song we're talking about today is Casting Lines. It's by Jack's Mannequin. It was the final track, track 11 on People and Things, which was released October 4th, 2011. What was it that made you want to talk about this song? What you said this one was really significant to you on the side of in Caves. I think is a very different song, which I do want to kind of come back to that point. But what about this song is really important to you?
We'll dive into it more, but basically, just kind of an overview. It's the message of the song.
Hmm.
This message that no matter how far you stray, how messy the road of life is, how far into the unknown you go, you've always got your family and you can always come home to them and they'll always be there for you. And that's a theme in my life that has been hugely important through a lot of the struggles that I've gone through and a lot of the things that I've dealt with, as well as what things that my sister has dealt with. And it kind of became like this theme song for me, my mom and my sister, as we took this journey of me healing and recovering from an eating disorder, my sister getting sober, and my mom seeing us through that. So we'll talk about it more in depth with, lyrics, specific lines and stuff. But I will say I do have a bracelet. My mom got my sister and I matching bracelets that she had made with her handwriting there, sterling silver cuffs, and her handwriting is etched, like engraved into them, and it says, and all that's past held us together, and all the lines we cast will bring us home. And so my sister and I have those
Oh,
matching bracelets. So,
beautiful.
it's just this it's kind of like our theme song. So that's the base of why it's so important to me.
That makes a whole lot of sense, knowing the little I do about your story. We talked about last year, and I also heard you on another podcast. Shout out to Stereotherapy. I
Mm-hmm.
listened to your interview on that one as well, so I learned a little bit more about you that way too. So I thought it might be connected to your relationship with your family and how important that
Yeah.
is, and how supportive they've been through your
Mm-hmm.
journey, through your struggles. So
Yeah. I mean, my mom and my sister picked up and left New York and moved to Missouri because that was the only place we found a doctor and treatment center that actually helped me. And so, they have never strayed from that path. And no matter how
hmm
crazy and messy and how much wreckage has been in the road, as Andrew says
yeah.
in the song. So it's just that theme is kind of everything.
That's awesome that it's special to you and also special to other members of your family as well at the same
Mm,
time. And that connection of the lyric, I love that. I love that you have the lyric on a bracelet.
yeah.
I'll just give you a little bit of production notes here. We've got McMahon on piano and vocals, and Bobby Raw guitar and vocals. We got Jay McMillan on the drums and percussion. We were just talking about Jay. Tim Pierce on guitars, Chris Cheney on bass guitar, and Patrick Warren on the keyboards. And producers on the track, like the rest of the album, were Jim Scott, Rob Cavallo, and Andrew McMahon, with Bobby Raw and Jay co-producing, actually. Bailey, did you know that this song's only been performed live 16 times?
I knew it was very few.
It's not much.
I've seen it once, and I actually had to go back and check set lists to see if I'd seen it because I didn't think I had.
Mm-hmm.
And the one time I did see it, I now realize why I did really realize I had seen it, because it was on the People and Things tour, the Indianapolis tour date. And that was the first Jack's Mannequin show or any Andrew show that I had a real photo pass to. Andrew had personally given me access at the barricade for the entire show, which
Right.
local or, photographers not with band don't usually have that access. And so I'd already seen that tour in St. Louis, and then I was in Indianapolis for that show and was at sound check, and that was before you could like buy going to sound check and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so he set that up, and I was very medically frail at the time and very sick. And so it was just like something really cool. He was like, yeah, you can shoot the whole show if you want. And they were really cool. And they were like, had a chair for me if I needed to like sit down in between songs and stuff. They were
Wow.
awesome about it.
They're really generous with you.
Yeah. And so I realized, like, okay, that's why I didn't remember if I'd ever, like, I knew I hadn't seen it in any like recent time.
Mm-hmm.
But that show, I was just like so caught up in the moment of like, oh my God, I'm like officially shooting Ender for the first time.
Yeah.
So I think I probably like don't recall half of that show.
Yeah, understandably. I don't remember, to be fair, I don't remember every single song I see at every show
Exactly.
and the
Yeah.
details. So there's no way. I got to look at set lists all the time. Like, did I see
Yeah.
that song? And I
Yeah.
definitely have never seen this song live. I was pretty certain of it. I was surprised the last time they've played it, that Andrews played the song, is at the January of this year show in Key West, Florida. I looked it up and I was like, wow. So one of the last shows they've played, they actually
Yeah.
played this song.
I remember seeing that on Instagram or something that he had
Yeah.
played it. And I was like, that's such a bummer. And my mom and my sister and I went to Indianapolis for the Winter in the Wilderness tour. And
hmm
it was like 3 days before my mom was going in to have part of her lung removed for cancer.
hmm
So like we went together and we didn't really know what the outcome was going to be or anything. We just knew she had to go have this surgery, and we didn't really know what the next steps from there were going to be. And we like asked Andrew at before the show, we were like, can you play it? And he was like, I've not played that song in forever. If you had asked me like a week ago, I would have worked it out and
Would have
played it for
learned
you.
it.
But I haven't played it in forever, so there's no way I can get up there tonight and play it. But so I knew he hadn't played it in a really long time because he said
Uh-huh.
like I haven't played it in ages. Like I couldn't just
Yeah.
kind of whip it out right now. So
Right. They played it in 2018 as a full band. I looked that up to find that out. And then as The Wilderness. And then he also played it on the 2020 live stream, just him on Instagram when he was playing all those live streams a few years ago. And
yeah,
that felt really special when they did that, when he did that, I should say.
I think I remember watching that. Yeah.
In fact, when I saw that performance, I was like, wow, I don't remember liking this song as much as I do in this moment right
Mhm.
now. It was just like a perfect timing for this particular song with
Yeah.
these lyrics. But Jack's Mannequins performed it 12 times, and then The Wilderness twice, and then Andrew solo twice. I actually thought you were going to say that you were at the Huntington, New York show in 2013. And again, I'm not like some encyclopedia of all these dates. Like I definitely looked all this up right before we got on here.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
okay, but here's the coincidence with that Huntington, New York show. Well, guess what they opened with in that show? It wasn't Casting Lines.
caves.
It was Caves.
Okay.
So I thought you were going to say that you were at that show, and I was like, whoa, your two
Yeah,
favorites right in one show.
that would have been crazy. I think the only time I ever saw Caves live was at the Winter in the Wilderness tour. I'm pretty sure.
And I think we actually talked about the power of him opening, the idea of him
Yeah.
opening with that song. And he opened with it at this Huntington show. And I thought of you when I was looking that up. I was like, oh my gosh, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be talking to Bailey soon. So,
That would have just been the perfect bookends for me to a show.
yeah, absolutely. Is this a song that you'd, maybe this goes without saying, but is this a song that you'd want him to play, like when you see him as The Wilderness or Jack's Mannequin?
As Jackson, it's tough. I see people and things as having a very different sound as his other
It
albums.
definitely does.
I personally think People and Things is severely underrated. I think it's a fabulous album. I think it's much more piano forward and much more like piano rock than a lot of his other stuff.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that's so beautiful about this song is that it's pretty pared down considering. I mean, there is guitar, drums, keyboards, but there's not a ton going on. It's so piano forward, and even when the
Hmm.
other instruments kick in, the piano is so forward in the mix.
Central. Yep.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that gets lost live a little bit in the mix, that piano forwardness of some of the songs.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah. Good point.
it would depend. I think at a solo show or like, a semi solo, or even if it was like how they've done like broken down versions of like Punk Rock Princess and stuff, like something like
Hmm.
that with casting lines, I think could be really cool. But I don't know if I'd want to see like the whole wilderness if you had like, Zach up there with the keys too and everything, like, because it would be a lot as opposed to like this is more just a few different instruments. There isn't like a ton going on in the studio recording.
Yeah, although I didn't think about it ahead of time. I agree with what you said. I think I would, if I was seeing it live, I think I would prefer a pared down version, either
Yeah.
piano only or like you said, the way they've done Punk Rock Princess, and I've seen
Yeah.
Holiday from Real that way,
Yeah. Holiday from Real that way.
where they kind of they everything's a little bit lighter acoustic, and
Yeah.
I think Into the Airwaves they did that way a few years back as
Hmm.
well. So yeah, I think that it could do well with that treatment. But yeah, if it was just Andrew on stage, this is a song that I think would be great to hear.
Yeah.
This is very very much in the wheelhouse of just Andrew on a stage.
Absolutely. It's so much about the story and the lyrics, and it's not
Hmm.
really a jump up and dance around song. It's just
Definitely
really
not.
like
No.
it's an emotional moment. Like these lyrics are emotional. And so, and I think we'll dive into the lyrics more, but I
Hmm.
think that the whole idea of always having that family that you can always go back to is also kind of that can be emotional for people because some people maybe it's not their blood family, maybe it's their chosen family, or maybe they're at a time when they are in that wreckage part of their relationship with their family. So
Yeah,
it's a heavy song in a lot of ways, and
it
can be
is.
emotional, I think, for people in a lot of different ways. So it goes better with a like more laid back type show, I think.
Yeah, some people don't have family, close, like you said, blood family.
Yeah.
And so it could be very emotional for them as well as, like you said, but the families are complicated
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
relationships are complicated. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk, well, with that in mind, let's talk songwriting. This song to me has a unique theme in the context of the album because even Andrew's come out and said it that this is a relationship album. This is a lot about
Mm-hmm.
and you could say this is about family relationships, absolutely. But I think a lot of this album is about his relationship with Kelly or about interpersonal, intimate relationships in
Mm-hmm.
general. And so this one kind of looks at a bigger picture. It could very well include intimate relationships with your significant other, but it is more about family, knowing family, including your significant other, of course,
Yeah.
and how important those people are to you. So to me, this one was a little bit different, but it's a hell of a way to wrap up an album, though, about
Yeah.
relationships. So
I think we were going to talk about the story behind how this song came about.
definitely, do you want to talk about it? Because
Yeah,
you are
sure.
welcome
So
to go ahead.
I know the story behind it, and if people want to hear it in Andrew's own words, it's actually on the Introducing People and Things playlist on Spotify. So he tells the
Yeah.
story about all the different songs on the album, and this one's on there too. But so he was approached to write a theme song for this NBC show that was going to be on called Parenthood, which
Hmm.
I watched.
So you've seen that show?
Oh, I watched the whole series, and I
Okay.
heard this story long after I'd started watching the TV show.
Okay. I did too.
I didn't know at the time, like when I'm watching the TV show, like, oh, this song was in the running for the theme song. But so he got asked to write this theme song for the show Parenthood, which was a TV show about multiple generations of a family and
Hmm.
the matriarch and the patriarch, and then their kids, and then their kids' families with their kids and their
Yep.
significant others. And so it was just multi-generational. And so they needed a theme song that was around, this idea of always having that family unit. And this is what Andrew came up with. And when I, learned that was how the song came about, I was like, this would have been a fabulous theme song. And like without seeing the show, it really like does go well with the whole theme of the show and how the show wound up playing out throughout the seasons. But he wound up losing out to Forever Young by Bob Dylan, which, I mean, come on, it was perfect for the show. Like, I think Casting Lines would have been really good, but something about the whole nostalgia of Dylan and everything, and how the intro that the song played on, it was like all vintagey pictures and stuff,
Hmm.
and so it was so perfect. But I think this would have been a very good other option. I think he did a fabulous job, and it's not like he's seen the series or anything, and it really like encapsulated what that show was about and wound up playing out to be.
Yeah, my wife and I watched like the first 5 to 10 episodes, so a significant portion of the first season. I think it was
Yeah.
like 22 episodes. We never made it to the end of the first season, but I really enjoyed what we watched, and I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to continue it, but we just didn't. Actually, I think that was the year. Yeah, that was the year we moved to Ohio, and had just gotten married the year before, and then we had our first child that next year. So life was very busy at the time, and I don't think we were
Yeah.
watching much TV. So then, after a certain point, watching a 45-minute drama every week, once you get like 20 episodes behind, you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm not going
Yeah.
to catch up. But I always
Yeah.
wanted to. But yes, for those that don't know, the show has Craig T. Nelson, Dax Shepard, and then Lauren Graham, who also played the mom on
Hmm.
Gilmore Girls, as well as a great cast of other actors that people have probably seen in a lot of other things. Like Bonnie Bedelia is another one that kind of jumps out that you might not know her name, but you've probably seen her in a bunch of things.
It was also, I'm pretty sure, the first thing Michael B. Jordan ever did. He was the boyfriend of one of Craig T. Nelson's grandkids. So one of Craig T. Nelson and Bonnie Bedelia's kids' child.
Okay.
Michael B. Jordan, who, is now like huge big deal.
Yeah.
He was a teenager then, and he was the boyfriend of one of the kids in the show.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that was one of the first things he ever did.
Okay. That he probably came in later on in the show. I didn't.
He was like this a couple seasons in, yeah.
Okay.
And Mae Whitman was one of the kids too, and she's been around forever. She's been a kid actor since she was like 5 years old or something.
She was on Arrested Development, right? If I remember
I think
correctly.
so, and she was the little girl in One Fine Day. I think with
Oh, didn't know that.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that was one of her first movies. So
So do you think if you had never seen that intro with Bob Dylan's song Forever Young, you think that, and you heard Andrew McMahon on there, I mean, we were probably biased, right, as fans of the guy, but do
yeah.
you think that would have been fitting then for the opening?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I definitely think so. Yeah. I think it really would have been fitting. I think it really summed up the show.
Hmm.
It's just once you've seen this like intro with these, vintage photos and Bob Dylan playing and everything, you're just like, this is so perfect. But not having seen that and just knowing like the show and hearing the song, I think it would have been a great fit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure most people haven't ever done this, but I just put it on Instagram just before we started talking. I did a reel of the intro that was on YouTube,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I put casting lines over top of it. So check it out after we're done. And
I'll
then
have to
anybody
go
can go
watch
check that on
that.
my Instagram. Yeah, I was like, wow, this actually fits really, really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. And I remember the intro from 12 years ago, or 14, now it's been 14 years since I watched the show. But yeah, I remember that intro too. And I'm not much of a Bob Dylan fan.
I'm not a huge Dylan fan either. It's just kind of like the nostalgia fits so
Yeah.
well that like
His vocals and even his
mhm,
kind of his cadence and the way he sings is always
yeah.
off-putting to me. So when I saw the intro again, I knew already that Andrew's music was being considered for it at this point when I went
Yeah.
back and rewatched it, and I'm like, oh, Andrew's would have been so much better. But I'm entirely
Yeah.
biased, of course.
Yeah.
I'm sure that a Bob Dylan fan, or maybe the majority of music fans, may disagree. I don't know.
Yeah.
Apparently, Andrew agreed with their decision. He was like, if I knew Bob Dylan
Yes.
was in the running, I wouldn't have even considered submitting a
Yeah.
song, right? And he's like, they made the right choice, just like you said. That was so cool that they took a demo that he had made for a TV show that was essentially
Hmm.
rejected from the TV show, and then someone was like, someone in the People and Things recordings said, "Hey, why don't you pull up that song that you wrote for NBC?
Yeah.
You know, use that one."
Yeah.
And
And I know he says like he didn't think he was really going to be into it when he like wrote the song, but then he wound up loving it. And so,
yeah,
it's pretty cool. And he talks about in the Spotify like when he tells the story,
hmm,
he wasn't a parent. So, and when he recorded the Spotify about people and things intro, like the little spiels about the songs, he hadn't had Cecilia yet. So he says
yeah,
like he wrote it from the point of view of kind of like being the kid and then the parents and the family unit because he didn't know what it meant to be a parent. And
hmm.
so,
Which I thought worked really well for the theme of the show, like
yes.
you said, as time went on. And again, I didn't
Yeah.
see the later seasons, but even the little bit I saw of it, it definitely captured the family is complicated. Family,
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes, but if you have a family that you can come back to, then you're very fortunate for
Yeah.
that. So.
Yeah. And even things that wound up playing out in like later seasons, the song just like fits perfectly. It's
Hmm.
pretty weird.
Huh. Interesting. Well, I heard
Yeah.
they did like an alternate version of Forever Young by Bob Dylan in like the last episode. That's what I read online today. And I got to be honest, when I read Forever Young by Bob Dylan, I had the Rod Stewart song Forever Young in my head. And I went back and listened. And then I read up on it and I found out that Rod Stewart basically changed the melody of Bob Dylan's
Hmm.
song, recorded his own version. So a lot of the lyrics are the same,
Yeah.
and some of the melody is, but he changed it to be his own, like a
Yeah.
different song. And of course, Bob Dylan gets songwriting credits for it. But
Yeah.
and there's also another song called "Forever Young" from the '80s, because I'm old, and it's by Alphaville. And I also thought of that song. Definitely not that song though. Completely different "Forever Young." So
That is one that I do not know.
yeah, that's kind of a deep cut. I mean, it was probably popular for whatever year it came out, mid '80s, but it was yeah, it's not one that's really stuck around in the public consciousness. So
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was a pretty fun story too. I would definitely recommend
Yeah.
people listen to that on Spotify. I mean, we basically summarized. You summarized it very well. But if anybody wants to hear it in Andrew's own words, I recommend going back to listen to that. I found some album reviews of People and Things that mention this song specifically from back 12 and a half years ago. So a journalist named Eric Allen from American Songwriter stated, "The emotional closer, Casting Lines, provides the perfect ending to this impressive musical jaunt about pondering where we belong and coming to terms with our own fates." I couldn't have said it better myself.
Hmm.
I think that was an absolutely A great way to capture what he was, what he was doing with the last song.
Hmm.
I think this is an awesome album closer.
I do too.
I'm not going to say whether it's a better song than Restless Dream because I can't decide that right now. But I think it might be a better album closer than
Yeah.
Restless Dream.
They're hard to compare because Restless Dream is just so, it's just the acoustic guitar. So they're
Yeah.
hard to even compare.
Yeah. It's a whole different song.
I think it's definitely a really good album closer for sure. It just has that like finality to it. Like it just
Hmm.
has like the end of a chapter or
Yeah.
the end of a story kind of thing. And just I think finality is a good way to put it. It just kind of feels like you're closing the book on something. And
And interestingly enough, it's the last song on the last full length album by Jack's
mm-hmm.
Mannequin. So,
Yeah.
which I don't think they knew at the time when they recorded it and put it on the end of the album. But to us, as time has gone on, it takes a final meaning for other
Mm-hmm.
reasons as well.
Yeah.
Another review, Chad Grisho from IGN, he compared the song to Augustana's Boston. Are you familiar with that song?
Oh yes. Huge fan.
Oh, are you? Okay. Oh, great.
Huge fan of that song.
Okay, first off, I never would have, until the cruise was announced last fall, I never would have put Augustana and Andrew McMahon together. Maybe that's wrong to others, but I also like Augustana a lot. And I like Dan Leas. I like the work he's done solo. But I never would have put them together, but I never would have put these two songs together. So I read the lyrics to Boston, and I don't get the connection there. Do you?
I do. I totally do.
Okay.
Both are very piano forward. And then similar production, I'd say, in terms of you start with, the slow piano, then you build at the other instruments, come back to the slow piano, solo piano at the end, kind of thing. So I
Hmm.
think production wise, similar. I'd say Augustana Boston gets a little more rockin' than Cast in Lines does. Like it picks it up a little
Definitely
bit
at the
more
end. Yeah.
at the end. But I can see lyrical and thematic similarities too. I just think that inner reflection is in both of them in the lyrics,
Hmm.
kind of bearing your soul about certain parts of they're both very honest and vulnerable in a lot of ways, I think, lyrically and thematically. So
Okay.
I can see that.
I can't remember if Boston in the song is referring to the place where he's from or he's going back to. I can't really remember the specifics of the lyrics there.
I'm pretty positive Boston is where he's going to because
Okay.
I think I'll go to Boston. I'll think I'll find a new life. I think I'll start
Yeah.
over where no one knows my name. So,
Okay. So he's going to somewhere, not back to,
yeah.
not
Yeah.
back home. Okay.
He's going somewhere to start over, but so you kind of have this like juxtaposition like in Boston he's going somewhere to start over and running from where he's from, and in Casting Lines you've got the like I'm going home, like I'm going to my roots, to my family instead of running.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, this journalist did call it a spiritual or pseudo sequel of sorts to Boston. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if this follows up, going away from home, now he's
Mm-hmm.
coming back home to what's
Yeah.
to his family, to who's important. So yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right, I can see it. Good job on the journalist, and thank you for helping me make those connections. Yeah, so Augustana will be on the Holiday from Real Cruise. I'm excited about that because I've still never had the chance to see them, and they actually were touring with Owl City recently, and the concert was about 2 hours away. I didn't make it. We had family in town, so I didn't get to see them then either. So I will finally get to see Augustana in November.
I've never seen them live. I'm not like a big fan of theirs in general. That song just happens to be a song that is very personal and like emotional to me. So
Gotcha.
the first time I ever went into treatment for an eating disorder was at a treatment center in Boston, and like
Mm.
I was, all MySpacey instant messenger, like brooding and put like on my way message, like I think I'll go to Boston. I think I'll find a new life, whatever.
Oh, so you have a particular connection to those lyrics. I get it
Deep
now.
connection to
Okay.
that lyrics. Yeah, those lyrics. Yeah. I really was going to Boston to start over my life. And it was
Yeah.
just kind of this whole random first full circle moment because I had been supposed to go to college in Boston, but I got too sick to be able to go to college. And then I
Mm.
wound up going to Boston, but it wasn't to go to college. It was to go to a residential treatment center. And that song came out right at that time. So it was perfect song at the perfect time. And so that song's always been, and we listen to it during our meals all the time. We listen to the Fray and that song like nonstop. And Hey There, Delilah. So that was like what got us through, like this group of 10 girls, like those songs were what got us through like the scariest times that we were
Right.
having.
Wow.
It holds a special place in my heart, that song for sure.
So pretty much on your life soundtrack then it sounds like
Yeah, definitely.
I would say that fits in the category there. All right. It sounds like you definitely relate to the themes of the song. We kind of talked about that at the top of the episode. Family is important, talking about what's most meaningful in life, giving your energy back to your loved ones, them kind of providing support and shelter for you and knowing that and being able to go back to that. So
Hmm.
the last time we talked about Caves, as I mentioned earlier, and that's also a very heavy song, but it's such a
Hmm.
different song. It's
It's
such a
so
different song
different.
from this one. Let's talk about sound a little bit. How does this one differ from Caves in terms of sound?
Well, we're not in a minor key and like we're not having like classical music moments, which we discussed about Caves, how
Yeah,
it's kind of
that's true.
like this multi movement classical type piece. But you start with the solo piano, which is similar.
Mm-hmm.
But then while it's a very heavy song lyrically, it definitely doesn't feel as heavy musically and sonically as Caves does. Caves has a much darker sound,
I
I
agree.
think, that than this does. This kind of has a more triumphant sound as opposed to Caves, a lot of it having this very reflective, dark, I don't want to say like dreary, but it's got a heavy sound to it. And you kind of get like this sound of like redemption in casting lines, I think, that you don't necessarily get in the production and sonically in Caves.
Yeah, last year when we talked Caves, we talked about finding the hope in that song, and you pointed out
Mm-hmm.
to me that there is hope within the lyrics of that song, but I feel like you have to look for it, you have to listen for
Mm-hmm.
it. Whereas in this song we're talking about today, Casting Lines, I feel like redemption is a great word, triumphant. There's a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm.
You're going somewhere positive. You're having a positive
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Yeah.
You're returning home, and home in this case is a good place, is a positive
Yeah.
place.
I think sound wise you get that too.
Mm,
Just
definitely.
in the key and how the instruments build. And Caves has a lot of parts of it where the piano is very chaotic. And
Hmm.
it's easier to hear the hope in the instrumentation of casting lines, whereas Caves you wouldn't really, listening just basely to the melody and the instrumentation. I don't think you would think there was hope in that song necessarily. I think you would think it was this messy, sad, chaotic world that he had built. But when you really decode the lyrics, there is hope in there if you look for it. Whereas this, it definitely sounds a lot more uplifting than Caves does.
We talked earlier about how Casting Lines feels like it could be the end of a movie, the end of a chapter,
Mm-hmm.
the end of an album, obviously. So if this were the end of a movie versus Caves being in the end of a movie, I think those would be two very different endings to movies.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
the feel you get, you
yeah.
I just think of Casting Lines playing in a movie or TV show, as we talked about earlier, and it seems like it would be a very triumphant,
Uh-huh.
redemptive sort of ending, like everything is going to be okay.
Yeah, you'd be leaving the theater on a high note. Whereas I
Hmm.
think if you ended a movie with Caves, people would kind of leave the theater feeling like they might have just been hit by a train or something. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I think Caves is a fantastic song and I love it, but it's
Right.
heavy and it wouldn't be that necessarily the best thing to end on
Right.
there.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think with the production on People and Things in general was a lot more polished, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that contributes a lot to the sound that we're talking about
Yeah.
versus what we heard on Glass Passenger in general.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've always appreciated that a little bit. Like even in the grunge era, the height of the grunge era, I'm gonna say in the '90s, I remember appreciating the more polished sound better.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized looking back, I probably liked pop grunge more than actual grunge
Mm-hmm.
music. And I'm okay with that. Or like we were calling it post grunge in the '90s, and after that, a little bit after that, kind of that radio friendly, polished
Mm-hmm.
version of grunge. And I feel like that's what a lot of People and Things was versus Glass Passenger. It was like the more polished, a
Yeah.
little bit more. I mean, pop. I don't know. Pop is such a generic term. I hate to use that word, but like, so I'll just stick with polished. a
Yeah.
little bit more of a polished version of what he was doing
Yeah.
on a lot of Glass Passenger.
A lot of times, like for me, when I think pop, I mean, pop in the 90s and like early 2000s was very different from what pop is now. Like
Definitely, yeah.
pop is so electronic, drum machines, all that kind of stuff now. Whereas pop in the 90s was like Oasis. Like, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like we're having, Matchbox 20 was kind of like pop in the 90s.
Yeah, pop rock, yeah.
Pop rock, yeah. And so I mean it kind of is more like pop rock, but I kind of feel like People and Things gives me like a Billy Joel, like contemporary Billy Joel feel.
Hmm.
And that Billy Joel definitely has a polish to him,
Yeah,
production wise and everything. Everything is very intentional in Billy Joel's music, I'd say. There's a lot going on at times with the horns and everything, but everything is like the placement of the horn lines and everything is so intentional. And I feel like there's a lot of that in People and Things too, just like a lot of intention in the different lines for the different instrumentation.
I agree.
And Andrew has said, Billy Joel has been a big influence on him. And I think you can hear that in this album.
And I remember reading that Andrew scrapped what he was doing initially for the third Jack's album, and he went back to the studio and he wanted to do an album where his musicians, friends, whatever you want to say, they were in there with him recording live, and he wanted more of a full
Yeah.
band sound. I've said that before here, talking about other songs on this album, but it rings just as true for
Yeah.
this song. Like we said earlier, it starts with the piano. I think about 30, 35 seconds in is when the guitar drops in. And
Yeah.
then about 50 some seconds in is where the drums come in.
Yeah.
I love the build. I've
Me
talked about that
too.
before in the show. I love the build of some of these
Yeah.
songs, and this one nails it.
And when the guitar first comes in, it's an acoustic, but then you get hit with an electric later in the
Hmm.
song.
Yeah,
And I love the electric guitar line that's later in the song. It's kind of in this instrumental break where it really builds and that electric guitar kind of rings out on top and the drum line is really great too. And they really complement each other. And it's kind of like the peak of the song instrumentally and the peak, it's like the climax of the song, the peak
hmm
of the song. And I love that part of the song, just and then they wind it back down and
right.
come back to that just solo piano
Yep,
and
I do
return
like
to the
that.
exact words that start the song. So,
I love that, like bookends, right? It's
hmm
they start, yeah, he starts and ends with the same lyrics and kind of like you said, the solo piano.
yeah,
I really appreciate that. Well, where do you want to start with the lyrics? Let's talk lyrics, speaking of which.
yeah. I don't know. Where do you want to start?
Well, I was actually going to mention that it begins and ends with the same lyrics, and I love
Hmm
those lyrics. So
Yeah,
that's where actually I was thinking about going first. So I guess let's just start from the top.
yeah. Sounds good.
The first and last lines of the song are, "You learn to run, you learn to race through life, this unforgiving pace. These lines we're tracing to the truth."
Andrew is totally a poet. I mean,
Yeah.
he's one of those songwriters that his lyrics are much more poetic than they are just lyrical. I feel like he has such a way with words and
Yeah.
he's got such a way with words. He's just like you can see that in his book Three Pianos. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not just a songwriter, he's a writer. I
Right.
feel like there's a big difference between people who are just lyricists and people who are writers, and you can really tell the
Hmm.
difference between people who have a way for writing songs and people who have a way with just writing the written word in general. And I think Andrew is one of those people who has a way with the written word, not just song lyrics.
I feel like I have these higher expectations maybe than I did 20 years ago for listening to
Yeah.
lyrics. And I've always been someone who listens for the lyrics and likes to read along with the lyrics, know what they're
Yeah.
saying in the song.
I'm a lyrics first person when it comes to listening to music. Like
Same.
the lyrics are everything. And then you can get the melody. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have my like guilty pleasure songs where the lyrics are kind of mediocre, but they're
Sure.
fun. But
Oh, I do too. Yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot of albums and songs I love that the lyrics mean nothing to me or anything, but
yeah,
it really helps the song if they mean something to
yeah.
me.
And I mean, there are some songwriters who you could just sit and read the lyrics and it makes total sense without a melody and you get the
Hmm.
message and it's beautiful without the music going along with it.
I'm not gonna lie. There's certain Andrew songs that I don't feel this certain way about,
Yeah,
but this song and a lot of his songs I do feel this way about. Where, like you
yeah,
said, you could read it on the page and say
yeah,
that's just poetry right there. Not everyone, and that's okay
yeah.
too.
That's okay too. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you're not going to do that with some of the, if you see Jordan,
Right.
some of
Yeah.
the early SoCo songs.
Yeah, or you're
But then
just telling
you've,
a story, or you're, just there's all kinds of different types of songs. So,
yeah,
all right. So, what are some lyrics that kind of jump out off the page at you then?
going along here, we'll skip to the chorus. So we've got, and we're still coming home, a thread through the unknown. Yeah, all the lines we cast into forever got tangled like some wreckage in the road. To me, that's like, we're still coming home, no matter how old you are, how far you've gone,
Hmm.
no matter where your journey's taking you, like you're still going back to your roots. You're still coming home. And I think that's really powerful. I love that he follows that and we're still coming home up with a thread through the unknown.
I do too. I really like those words that he uses
Me
there.
too. Life is so full of unknowns. Like everything about the road of life is unknown. You don't know what your next step is going to be. Even if you think you've planned out your life perfectly, it never goes
Yep.
according to plan. No matter
Yep.
what the plan you have for yourself is, it something gets thrown in there and gets throws you off track. And that's so much what this song is like, no matter how far off track you get, no matter how far you wander. And so I love that, the thread through the unknown. I think it really fits with this song. And I love the all the lines we cast into forever got tangled like some wreckage in the road.
And by the way, before you said that earlier, before you said you referred to some wreckage on the road as the,
Yeah.
I can't remember how you put it earlier,
Yeah.
but I never interpreted it that way. I never thought of the line
Mm-hmm.
wreckage in the road until you said that. And now I see it as there are some bumps in the road. There are some
Mm-hmm.
things you have to get through,
Yep.
some garbage, some negative points. And I never put that together until you said what you said earlier.
And I think it depends on what your personal viewpoint is too of how you can so many people interpret so many lyrics differently, and it's kind of like what you bring with your personal experiences to listening to that song, how you might interpret it or how you might think of it. But I definitely
Hmm.
think the bumps in the road, the hurdles you got to jump over, the that gets in the way, the thunderstorms, the all that stuff. I think that's
Yeah.
definitely that wreckage in the road. And
Yeah. I like that metaphor that he used there because that's not one I've seen before.
I love the tangled like some wreckage in the road because you have a car crash, the metal gets all tangled and everything. But he's also got the line before that with all the lines we cast into forever. So he's like equating this lines, so like a string or a straight
Hmm.
line or something like that. A rope casting a line, so like fishing. So you're
Yeah,
thinking
that's what
like
I thought of
string,
fishing, like throwing something out there, hoping to bring something back.
hoping to bring something back. So you're thinking like string there, and then he equates it to how it gets tangled like a wreckage in the road. So it gets tangled like the metal of a car accident. And so
Hmm.
then you've got this visual of that, but then you've got the visual of like the tangled string. So it's a clever way to give you visuals of what he's saying in these metaphorical ways and just bringing in different visuals to kind of bring to life the message. And as you said, like casting that line, putting something out there and hoping to get something back. And it might not happen. And
You're taking a chance. Yeah.
exactly. And life is messy and life is chaotic and life gets tangled.
Hmm.
And you get tangled up in life and you might get tangled up in different situations that could cause that wreckage in your road or, cause wreckage in someone else in your life's road. And so I just love that imagery there. I think it's beautiful. I think it's poetic. And I think it just really paints this picture of this story that he's trying to tell.
Yeah, and that first half of the chorus that you read is all kind of saying, despite the things that we come across, but then he comes back to, but what's positive is, but all the time that's passed held us together, and all the lines we cast will bring us home. It's a long
Mm-hmm.
way, but I'm coming home. So it kind of,
Yep.
the whole second half of the chorus is we're going
Yeah.
someplace
Yeah.
good.
And even if you're not going someplace good, you have that good to fall back on.
Hmm.
Even when the
True.
road is messy, even when things aren't good, you have that good there to fall back to go back to for support to help you through that time that isn't where you're not getting back what you're hoping. I think
Yeah.
that's in there too. That is the lyric that we have, my sister and I have the bracelets of. All the time that's past held us together, and all the lines we cast will bring us home.
Which makes perfect sense. That's all about family.
Yeah, and everything that my sister and I went through together separately, my mom and I went through together, my sister and my mom went through together, the three of us went through together. As I said, I was in treatment for an eating disorder, my sister was in rehab. My mom had me in Missouri in treatment, my sister in New York in rehab. She was going back and forth. She lived in New York at the time. She was going back and forth, coming to see me, going back to see my sister, and just first you can think of like all the time that passed before that, before there was trouble, when we were innocent little kids, like we still had all that, all those memories. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get this wreckage and you get all this stuff that's messy and all of that happened. It somehow made us closer. It made us stronger. It held us together. And so that's why that line is so special, that all the time that's passed held us together. It's just everything that happened from when we were little innocent kids and the things we
Mm-hmm.
did together then to all this hell that we went through, if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah.
And no matter where our lives sent us or where our lives were cast, we always could come home and we always had that support of home. And so to me, those two lines are like the heart of the meaning of this song.
Oh, I would agree with you. This chorus this is where we get that triumphant, in my opinion, that
Mm-hmm.
triumphant sound you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Is the middle of this chorus before it winds down a little bit toward the end of the chorus.
Yeah.
I love the reflective nature, and you alluded a lot to that in what you said of this chorus. It's kind of looking back. It's like, wow, I got through all this, and it's led me here. The verses are great too, but I think the chorus is really what pulls everything
Yeah.
together in the reflective nature of this song.
I also love the "but who am I to argue fate." To me, I don't know if this is what he meant by that, but to me, I see that line as written from a kid's point of view about their parents. Like he says he wrote it, as like a family unit thing. Like to
Mm-hmm.
me, that "who am I to argue fate," I interpret that as who am I to argue the fate of why I was given this family?
Mm-hmm.
Like why I wound up with this family. Like everyone is placed with a family for whatever reason they're placed, who knows who the higher power in the world is? I sure as heck don't know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, fate puts you where you're meant to be. I do believe that. And some people's paths are easier than others. And we said, family is messy, and maybe you have an adopted family, maybe you have a chosen family, maybe. But I think
Yeah.
everyone has some sort of family. And I think fate does play a role in bringing you to whoever that family is. And so
Mm-hmm.
that I love that. Who am I to argue fate? I don't, as I said, I don't know if that's what Andrew meant by that line. That's how I interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that like is another like bringing your personal experience to it. Like I feel that fate plays a lot of role in a lot of things in life. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but I think, just that there's a reason why you were given the support system and whatever type of family it is that you feel those feelings about and that you feel
Yeah.
you can go home to. Like you can't argue with why you were given that. Like you were given it for some reason. So
Yeah, and I'm going to add to what you said with the next line because, and I wouldn't have thought of this until you said what you said, but who are you to walk away? Do you think that might be to mean who are you to walk away from your family then?
I think so. That's what
Okay.
I take
That's how
out
I
of it.
interpret
Yeah.
it based upon what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I hadn't thought of before. Because then he goes back to the chorus and we're still coming home.
Yeah.
Kind of almost like you could put the word despite. Despite all this, we're still
Mm-hmm.
coming home, a thread through the unknown.
And I love after that when you go back to the chorus and then he goes back to the "who are we to argue fate," but instead of being "and who are you to walk away," he says "who am I to think this way."
Oh,
And
yeah. I see that.
the first time he says it, it's "I'm standing here with nothing left to prove," but then he flips it to "I'm standing here with nothing left to lose and we're still coming home." So it's like I love that flip. And then the following chorus, he also does a flip where instead of "all the lines we cast into forever got tangled like some wreckage in the road," he does "all the lines we cast into forever will come back when the weather hits the road." And I just love those two flips there that he like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just two different, like two little lines in those sets of lyrics that everything else is exactly the same, but he flips just two lines and it makes like all the difference. It sends a total different message in that part of the song than earlier, just with a couple different line switches.
Yeah, it's funny because I love when songwriters do that when they flip a
Me
couple
too.
words or a line. But I also, when I'm trying to sing along, I get thrown off a lot.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just like singing along and singing the wrong lyrics. But that's okay. I appreciate the differences that we can
Yeah.
sing along to and think about and
Yeah.
interpret. So I love that kind of. But we're still coming home, where his voice goes up a little bit, but we're still coming home.
Yeah.
That's like so powerful. That's another one of those like epic, triumphant moments of the song.
Yeah. And that's like right after, kind of almost right after the like big instrumental swell. So it like works
Yeah,
perfectly because you get the electric guitar in there and then he goes up instead of, staying with the original melody. And for
yeah,
then we're still coming home. And it fits really well with that, the electric guitar in there and the drums picking up and everything. It brings the power in the vocals in addition to the instrumentals. So
it definitely does. Yeah. And like I said, the way it bookends with the lyrics at the beginning
yeah.
and the end, I think that's really
Hmm.
powerful too, because it's like we went on this journey of life. But it's interesting. I've been listening to this song a lot this week, as I often do when I know we're going to record an episode, and at the same kind of in the similar moments, I've been editing this video that's 23 years old. It's this summer with a group of friends, and I had hours of footage. And you look at videos that are 23 years old with your friends, and you're
Hmm.
like, not everybody needs to see all that.
Yeah.
But so you want to edit it down a little
Yeah.
bit and like, okay, what's important? What would I want to share back to those people? It kind of made me think of the lyrics of the song a little bit differently also. Since that moment in time that I spent with all these people in 2001, had an amazing time. And then we all kind of, so to speak, went our separate ways. A lot of us moved out of
Hmm.
state, moved to different places, had families or married, whatever. Some divorced, some had family tragedies or different tragedies or overcame obstacles. And then, and kind of looking at this video from 23 years ago and reaching back out to some of these people and being like, hey, how have you been? And I have this footage to
Hmm.
share with you if you want to take a look at it. And it's just such a range of emotions, but
Yeah.
it allowed me to think of the lyrics of this song in a slightly different way, just kind of like
Hmm.
a group of people. It could be family, start
Yeah.
off, and then you all kind of go off in your different directions for a while. But you can always come back to that group
Hmm.
and say,
Yeah.
look at the time we've had, and
Yeah.
let's reflect on all we've gone through since the last
Yeah.
time we had those times together.
Absolutely. It's like, you have those friends in your life where it doesn't matter how long you go without talking to each other.
Hmm.
When you do talk to each other or see each other again, it's like no time has passed at all, regardless of how much life and time has gone by in that time span that you hadn't talked to each other, hadn't seen each other. But it's
Right.
like when you reconnect, it's like nothing ever changed, kind of. It's the
Hmm.
same type of thing.
It's so interesting when that much time has changed because with some of these people I've kept in touch, but not all. And so it was just interesting to watch this video and be like,
Hmm.
wow, in a way, it doesn't seem like any time has passed at all, but in a
Yeah.
way, it seems like a whole lot of time has passed. So,
Yeah, you sit there. I was going through a bunch of old photos from when I was in sixth grade. We were doing they had this like 20, I think it was I guess it was 20-year reunion, I think, of
hmm
this production of A Christmas Carol that I was part of at this professional theater. And some of the kids cast put together a 20-year reunion. And so we were all like sharing photos with each other and stuff that we had. So I was going through photos. So it's very similar. And you're
yeah,
looking at it and you're just like looking at these pictures and it's like, gosh, this seems like it was not long ago. But then you're looking and you're like, damn, a lot of life has happened since then. But
That's a good way to put it. A lot of life
yeah,
has happened. It's like, wow, and I know my own experience, but there were all these other people that had their own experiences, and for us all to come back together, that would be
yeah.
really cool. I love the idea of reunions.
Oh, me too.
I haven't done like family reunions, class reunions, groups of friend reunions. I love that idea. It's so hard sometimes, to get
Yeah,
people together that are in all these
yeah.
different places. So,
The high school I went to a all girls boarding school,
hmm
and I was a day student, but it was like I think it was like 70% boarding students, 30% day students, and the school opened in, I'm gonna get this wrong, but I think 1886 technically. And the reunion, so every class doesn't organize their own reunion. So every year, everybody who's in that 5 year span, like in those 5 year
Okay.
milestones,
Yeah.
the school organizes an entire reunion. And so it's like I graduated in 2000, high school in 2005. So like I'm the fives and tens year.
Yeah.
So the last reunion I went to, my last reunion, my 15-year reunion was canceled because of COVID. But so the one we went to before that was our 10 year, and my 10-year reunion, there were women from the class of 1935 there because everyone shares a reunion. So
Mm-hmm.
you get to see like all your people, but it makes it so much easier for like people to come together because the school just organizes it. So and you just go with like you're there with your friends, and then you wind up like through the years meeting people from other classes that like you share a reunion with, so you see them like every 5 years and stuff.
Interesting.
And I share a reunion. Jane Fonda went to my school. I share a reunion with Jane Fonda, so like she's at my reunions when we go. And
Mm-hmm.
Shane and I have had some fabulous moments at reunions. And but it's just it's really cool thing that they do, but it takes on like a whole new meaning of a reunion because
It does.
you like return to the people who you originally knew, but then you're building relationships through that reuniting with that original group. You wind up building relationships with other people in similar, from who had similar experiences to you just at different times in their lives. And so we have a class parade. And so like you'll have like
Yeah.
a golf cart with people with like holding the banner that says like class of 1935, and there'll be like two little old ladies on the golf
Uh-huh.
cart. And then
Oh,
it goes all the way to people at their first reunion, 5th-year reunion. So but yeah, it just brings a whole new definition to like reunion. It's a big thing. But yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna assume your favorite part of casting lines is the chorus. That is the end of the chorus. Is that those lines that are on your bracelet, or
Yes, I'd say so. I'd say I don't know if I would say favorite. I'd say the ones that hold the most meaning to me are that.
okay?
I think my two favorite lines are the lines we cast into forever got tangled like some wreckage in the road.
Mm-hmm.
And then but I think my absolute favorite line is all the lines we cast into forever will come back when the weather hits the road.
Mm-hmm.
Because that one to me is like everything you've put there out there in the world will come back to you during your hardest times. Like when the weather hits the road, when it's your hardest times, everything you've put out there into the world will come back to you and like be with you during your hardest times. And so I think that, and I just think that's a gorgeous lyric. And I love that switch there in that last chorus. I think that's probably my favorite line. But I'd say the line that means the most to me is the all the times past held us together and all the lines we cast will bring us home.
Mine's pretty similar, but it's toward the end. It's a long way, but I'm coming home.
Yeah.
And I like when he says "to you" in the one time he says
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
which I think is during that kind of swell that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I love the part I mentioned earlier as well. We're still coming home in that final chorus where his
Yeah.
voice goes up a little bit and
Yeah.
changes. Yeah, the ending of the song, kind of the climax, if you will, of the song
Mhm.
before it kind of comes back down.
And I think that's what would be my lyrically. Musically, it's definitely the build up between the all the lines we cast will bring us home. It's a long way, but I'm coming home to you. That
Hmm.
instrumental there where the electric guitar kicks in and the drums build up. I just love that
Yep,
part of the song.
I do
So
too. Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's what makes that line powerful for me.
it's perfectly placed with that instrumentation with what they do with the instrumentation there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you get a chance to watch the music video or short film, as they call it?
I did, yes.
I like it.
I do too. It's very simple, but I think it really nails home that it like really nails that message of no matter how far someone wanders or how far someone goes or because the short film is just that rope and it's like got knots in it and people pulling the
Yeah.
rope, and then at the very end the guy's at the front door of the house and he's like back at the house. And so I think it just gives you this, and you have different people picking up the rope through different parts of the video if I'm
Yeah.
remembering correctly.
Most of it's one guy. There's a theme throughout for the one guy's journey. But yeah, that it does show other people at times.
So I think it really does convey that like no matter how long that road is, you can
Hmm.
always find your way back. Like
Yeah.
you can always come home. You always have your roots. No matter how far astray you get, you always have those roots. And I think it's very simple, but I think it definitely gets that point across.
I don't mind when a video is more literal, and there are
Yeah.
times when Tangled, there's a girl like combing a tangle out of her
Yeah.
hair, and there was another one I can't remember at this moment, but there was some very literal references when
Yeah.
Andrew's singing some of the lyrics, and it's the visuals it's showing, even if they're real quick in a flash. And then, like you described, the whole journey of the guy walking and ending up back at home, as
Yeah.
Andrew sings at the end. You learn to run, you learn to race through life, this unforgiving pace. These lines were tracing
Yeah.
to the truth. And I guess I should have read right before that line, it's a long way, but I'm coming home. The final time he says that is when the guy's arriving at the house. I appreciate when a video ties back to the actual
Me
song's
too.
lyrics. And I didn't find that with all the People and Things short films, but I did find that in this one.
It's simple, but I like how a lot of the times, a lot of the shots, they're pretty arty. Like maybe you just see
Mm-hmm.
the hands picking up the rope, or it's like a
Yep,
close up of the rope moving. It's not so even though it's simple, it's got some like cool cinematography to it, and
it does.
it's not just like watching someone pull a rope. Like it's got art to it. It's got arty filmmaking to it. And I don't mind simple music videos or literal, music videos or interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I kind of find the ones that are very bizarre to be like confusing to me because,
Same.
or ones that are more metaphorical or that don't seem to have any connections to lyrics. Then I'm like confused. I'm like, wait a minute, what is the story with this song? Like, is it what's in the video or is it what's in the words? Because they don't seem to mesh with each other. And now I'm really confused.
I feel exactly the same way with some music videos. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of the like literal and do it in like an arty way or something like that.
Right.
Or like mix in. I'm a fan of mixing in live footage than with like actual film type, like
Mm-hmm.
telling the story of the song. I think it comes from my philosophy as a photographer because I'm very much about showing the truth behind everything and the beauty in everything, whether it's unconventional beauty or just being very honest and being very vulnerable in what you're in things I shoot and
Mm-hmm.
very organic and like when I do portraits with people or mostly musicians, like I'm very much about capturing that person in their element, like using locations that
Sure.
mean something to them, really capturing their personality, the quirks in them, maybe even with live music, like a lot of shots people might say like there's this one band that I'm really good friends with and I photograph them a lot. They haven't done stuff in a while with this band called The Hunts and
Mm-hmm.
they opened on tour with OAR oh gosh, a while ago now. They've done 2 tours with OAR, but it's a group of 7 siblings, and they're like Mumford and Sons, Head and the Heart, folk pop kind of
Okay.
stuff. They're all multi instrumentalists, but the 2 sisters make these fabulous facial expressions. But when you shoot the photos, sometimes they're not the most. They're like very emotional. They're not the
Uh-huh.
most attractive photos, but it really captures what that performance was like because it's
Sure.
capturing them as an artist. Same thing with Andrew. He makes very funny faces sometimes when he's
Yeah.
singing. And like I'll get these shots and I'm like, that's killer shot. And somebody might say to me, but he looks so weird. That's the weirdest face. And I'm like, yes, but that's him as a musician and that's who
Mm-hmm.
he is.
It being expressive. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I don't care if he obviously there's a difference between like someone looks ridiculous and then like you're capturing them as who they are as an artist. But I'm very much about the organic, like the raw, the who the person is and as an artist, not this like polished picture
Mm-hmm.
of capturing someone or capturing a
Sure.
scene or street photography or whatever. So I'm not a fan of these like super produced, polished music videos where it's, $10 million spent on production or whatever, they're in a studio with instruments that aren't plugged in. And I'm just like, I can't
Yeah.
get over it. Like,
Okay. That bugs you, huh?
oh, yeah. I'm like, you're playing a guitar and there are no chords, there's no pickup, you have no pack on your like no wireless pack on your guitar. You're just standing there with a guitar, like and
Yeah.
you're pretending you're playing music. I can't. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. I can't get into it.
Yeah. I like the music videos, like you said, with a story, a little bit of a story to them, but related to the lyrics or
Yeah.
something relatable within the lyrics.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate that the filmmaker, in the case of Casting Lines, I feel like he took these lines pretty literally. All my roads lead back to you. and A Road We Walked Alone, and certainly other things as well.
Yeah.
But just, as the main character is kind of moving through on his way home, I kind of appreciate that in music videos when there's kind of
Yeah.
like something to follow.
Me too. And I like how they left it that you never saw the people he went home to.
Oh,
Like
that's
he
true.
like
Yeah.
opens the door, but you
And
and
walks,
goes
and then the door closes.
and
Yeah.
walks in and then the door closes. So you never saw who he went home to. So it kind of leaves it open to interpretation to you too, like who are you going home to? So I think that's cool too. Like it leaves a level of like to the viewer to kind of write the ending to that story. Like who did he go home to?
Right.
So it leaves that open for some interpretation, which I think is cool too.
That's true. We don't really need to see who he's going home to. He made it home. So,
Yeah.
do you think this is one of the most fitting album closers that Andrew has?
Yes. Especially as we said, it turns out it winds up being the final song of Jack's Mannequin. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't count the bonus tracks, it's the final
Right.
song on the final album. Although I do find very fitting that Keep Rising was the only bonus track on the Best Buy CD version. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you like bought the Best Buy CD, Keep
Right.
Rising was the final track of Jack's Mannequin, which I think also is very fitting in terms of the whole Jack's Mannequin, how it developed, how, with Andrew's story, how it wound up coming to be. Like, he didn't obviously set out to like have this 3 album arc that has this whole album in the center that's about his journey with cancer and everything, but just kind
Right.
of how his whole story unfolded and how Jack's Mannequin unfolded within that. I think Keep Rising is a very fitting final track for the final album from that 3 album arc. But
Yeah, that's true.
if you have just the regular album and you don't have the Best Buy version with Keep
Yeah.
Rising as the final track, I think it's one of his best album closers.
Yeah, because he has some really good ones.
I think Birthday Song might be his best closing track.
Really? Okay, that might be a hot take there. That's love the song, love it as an album closer as well. But I'm looking at a list of album closers here in front of me,
I mean,
and
you've got
I
some
don't.
killer ones.
There's such good
There
ones.
are so
Yeah,
good ones.
every one could be in contention.
Into the Airwaves is a killer album closer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the latest one, "Smoking Ribbons." That's pretty. That's one of those
Oh,
kind of
such a
epic,
good
triumphant
song.
songs.
Yeah, yeah.
"Maps for the Getaway." I mean, one of my
Oh
favorite
my
wilderness
God.
songs.
Okay, yeah. Maps for the Getaway is one of my favorite songs. And I'd say that's in my top 5 most emotionally connected to Andrew songs. That song also has a very large significance emotionally in my life,
Mm,
Maps for Getaway.
yeah,
So yeah, that one just hits me in all different places. So for that,
yeah.
in various reasons around that.
That one's pretty special to me too.
The house we left behind in New York is just I just picture myself sitting outside that house and
Mm,
everything he says about the house he's sitting outside of, I could say about the house we left behind in New York, the house
wow.
that I grew up in. And so that song gets me anyway. So,
Yeah.
that one's a special one to me. And I think it's a hot take here. I think that's the best song on that album, probably. But
Oh, I do too. I agree with you.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think that's
by
the
a
best
long
song
shot.
on that
I mean,
album.
that's
Yeah.
that's a great album. There's
Yeah.
10 great songs on there, but that might
Yeah.
be the best. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's in production wise, it's fantastic, and
Mm-hmm.
just everything about it is incredible. So yeah, that definitely is in contention too. But I think Birthday Song is way up there. I think that's an incredible song.
I think I might put that out on Instagram as a to vote. I'm curious as
Oh,
what
I
people would say with all the options, because I think it's gonna be split. I think it's gonna be very split.
You should do that. That'd be really interesting to see what people said
Yeah.
because there are
Yeah, I
so
think I
many
will.
good options. There are so many
Yeah.
good options, and like I love Smoking Ribbons, but it is very triumphant. But I wouldn't say it's one of the best album closers. I think he's got better ones.
Yeah, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean,
It's true.
some people would be more along the Maps for the Getaway or the Casting Lines or Birthday Song, like kind of a wind down
Yeah.
type of reflective piece.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, Smoking Ribbons is a little bit different, more of a celebratory type of
You've
ending.
got Miss America, you've got Globes and Maps. I mean, you've
Yeah,
got like so many good ones.
yeah. You mentioned Into the Airwaves. That's yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
too many
so good.
great ones. Yeah.
He's nailed down the picking the right track to close out the album, I think. He's got that one nailed down.
Final question with regard to that is Caves or Miss California the technical final track on Glass Passenger? Because we talked about that last time, and I think it's Miss California, isn't it?
It's Miss California.
Doesn't it say bonus track at the end of it, though,
I
or not?
don't think Miss California is a bonus track, but it feels like it should
Okay.
be. But I
It
don't think it
does.
is.
Yeah. Yeah, because we talked about that last
Yeah,
time. Now I can't
yeah,
remember, but okay. That's a tough one for me because, and I said this a year ago, it should have been Caves.
yeah. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Because Miss California just feels so out of place after Caves. It's
Yeah.
like, what
It
is
is kind of,
happening?
yeah, it's like starting another album or something.
Exactly. I personally think Hammers and Strings should have been the closing track on Glass Passenger.
That would fit in with a lot of the songs we're talking about right now. Yeah, that's kind of a good wrap up closer. Well, thanks so much again for coming on the show and being part of it. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. I had a great time. Love talking music. Love talking Andrew. It's always blast.
Yeah, and it sounds like you got a few things, a few projects coming up. So good luck
Yep.
with your
Yep.
galleries and
Awesome.
shows.
Thank
And
you. Yep. And I've got a bunch of concerts coming up to go to. So
oh,
it's,
awesome! Are
it's
you going to see something corporate this year by any chance?
yes, I am. I have tickets to the Ryman and I'm hoping to shoot the show and I'm really excited because it would be like a super full circle moment because I've never shot something corporate officially.
Mm-hmm.
The Something Corporate reunion tour was like I had a very bad split with my art and myself as a photographer while I was sick and really dealing with really severe depression and just not thinking I was good enough and whatever. And I shot one bad roll of well, what I thought was one bad roll of film and put my camera down and went years without really doing anything. And taking this digital camera I had to the Something Corporate reunion tour was what got me back into photography after like 6 years. And so not only would that be like a crazy full circle moment shooting something corporate, but the Ryman is a dream venue for me to shoot it. So I've always wanted to
Oh, I
shoot a
bet.
show at the Ryman. So I'm fingers crossed that that works out. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I don't see why it wouldn't, but I'm excited about that. And I have to be in Indianapolis like 2 days after that show. So for a week long gig. And so it's like crazy timing, but I was like, I have to make it work. We're making it
Oh
work.
yeah.
I don't care if it's a terrible timing. It's work. Like we're making it work. So that was the only show near me. So
If that show was on a Saturday night, I would have driven down. I'm about 6.5 hours from there.
yeah.
It wasn't going to work on a weekday for me.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Usually summer concert season for me kicks off in May.
Hmm.
I don't have any concerts in May, so that's kind of weird. And then I have one in June. I have nothing in July, and then everything is like then I have a ton in like August, September, October. So
Okay.
I've got a bunch coming up. I'm seeing Jason Isbell in the 400 unit for the first time, which I am psyched about. I've never seen Jason Isbell, and I love him, so I'm super psyched about that. Billy Joel and Sting, which I'm really excited about.
Oh wow.
Billy Joel Turnstiles is my absolute all-time favorite album. So this will be my third time seeing him, so I'm psyched for that one. SoCo, Noah Khan is the next one I'm going to, and
Hmm.
then the Aerosmith farewell tour. I have that in the.
I've been holding on to a ticket for that for like
Oh
a year
yes,
since it's been
yeah,
postponed.
us too.
Well, again, thanks for joining the show. And anybody listening, feel free to message me on Instagram. I always like the feedback. And check out that reel, like I said, of casting lines over top of the intro to Parenthood. Something different, but it's a long way, but I'm coming home.